Good evening, everyone. 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm Jeff with Astroscoop Deep Dive Astrology Coaching. So, lots to talk about tonight on the weekly live stream. We'll wait a few minutes to see if anyone else comes in. Carolyn's here and says happy Friday. Indeed, happy Friday. Yes. So much going on in the cosmic sky. Lots of amazing stuff. And lots of challenges as well. But we'll wait a few minutes. And today is November 22nd, 2024, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My weekly live streams are usually at this slot on Fridays, sometimes Saturdays, but they're always here on YouTube, which is at Astroscoop 3801. And I'm also on Twitter or X, Astro_Scoop, and I'm on Instagram, Astroscoop7. So besides YouTube, X and Instagram is where I usually am posting videos and clips and posts as well. So looking to the west, pitch black, very cold tonight on the East Coast. It feels like it's in the 30s, and it's now been dark for 2.5 hours. So it's what a different vibration than even just 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it's pretty amazing. And of course, we're getting into the deeper fall. And what we're going to talk about tonight is we talked about, I caught up on Scorpio last time. So tonight we're finishing up Scorpio, and then we're talking about the Scorpio-Sagittarius Cusp period, which we're in right now. And the Scorpio-Sag Cusp period runs from November 19th to right around the 24th or 25th. So tonight being the 22nd, we have the weekend left of this cusp period before we're into true Sagittarius. But happy Sagittarius time, happy Sagittarius birthdays to all the Sag people out there in the next month, born under the sign of the Archer and the Centaur. Sag is quite the sign. So, but tonight we're going to talk about the cusp period and what it means to be under the rulership of the two signs together, Scorpio and Sag. And we'll wait a little bit. I see someone else popped in. We'll wait another 2 or 3 minutes. If you wish to donate to the channel, this is a tiny microscopic channel, but I am growing very slowly. If you'd like to donate, you may donate via Venmo. It's at Astroscoop. You can find me pretty easily. If not, you can contact me for information. Any amount is greatly appreciated. It's not about the amount, it's about the thought. So small channels, it takes a long time to grow, and that's it. It's just slow growth, but it is growth. So I appreciate all the views. And I want to mention before we get started, look at a picture I have here. Where is it? I had well, can't seem to find it. But I was looking at my analytics for the channel, and I had mentioned in the last couple of weeks how the United States is giving me more views now, which is great. I'm here in the States. But in the last 10 days or so, I'm getting the majority of my views are from all sorts of different countries around the world, and very obscure countries too, like Indonesia, Nepal, I think Bangladesh, which is wonderful. Again, no rhyme or reason in this YouTube world of videos and live streams where your fans and your watchers are from. There's no rhyme or reason to it, but I truly appreciate it. And if anyone sees this replay or live stream and you're from one of those countries, please comment and let me know how you found me, how you found the live stream or the videos, etc. I've been doing a lot of cusp mashup videos lately. A lot of work on cusp stuff because my cusp videos do very well. And it seems to be a lot of people are born on the cusp periods. And it's fascinating to be born on a cusp. I know so many family and friends uh, that are born on cusp periods. And it's really, really fascinating. So thank you so much, those countries, Nepal, Indonesia, India, Canada as well. Other than the US, there's a lot of viewership and a lot of new views in the last month too. A lot of new viewers and new subscribers. So I really appreciate that. We are growing, and it's a good thing. Yeah, like I said, it's slow growth, but it is growth. And of course, we're in Sagittarius time right now. And Sagittarius is all about growth for everyone. We all have Sag in our horoscope or natal chart. And then Sag is in an event chart. And Sag is in the cosmic sky right now at 1 degree of Sag. 1 degree. So we're just starting out. And in a few days, we'll be in the pure, raw, early stages of Sagittarius energy moving forward. And we'll be saying goodbye to Scorpio, goodbye to that Scorpio energy, and which is actually intercepted tonight in the 5th house of romance. So it's kind of hidden. But the Scorpio energy right now is there's still a little residue left because it's cusp. So we will talk about that. Wait another minute or two. But at the end of the hour, after we talk about the celebrities, we're going to talk about, on the way out, is this Sun sextile Pluto aspect. Sun in Sagittarius sextile now, the newly direct Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius. So that's a pretty amazing, it's amazing with the signs, and it's also amazing by the aspect. And I looked up celebrities that have that aspect in their natal chart. And not that particular combination of the Sun, Sag Sun, and the Aquarius Pluto, because that was a long time ago, over 200 years ago. And thank you for that video. I did watch that. I think his name is Steve Judd Astrology. So I watched his quick video on that. And yeah, he's right. It's amazing times. Right now, amazing times to be alive, no matter what your age. So if a baby's born tonight, whoa, imagine a baby born this weekend with that newly formed Sun sextile Pluto aspect. So we'll talk about that at the end. So please stay tuned. Well, I always talk about the period that we're in, the astrological period, the season, nature, everything, how it aligns and coincides with astrology. And then we talk about celebrities, and then we'll talk about the cosmic sky and aspects. So this period is the Scorpio-Sagittarius Cusp period, and we have Pluto here, and we have Jupiter. So I mentioned the late Scorpio energy is Pluto energy. All Scorpios are ruled by Pluto, and to a lesser extent Mars. And the last decan of Scorpio is co-ruled by the Moon, adding a sort of more watery and Cancer or Cancerian sort of influence to late Scorpio people. But if you're born between the 19th and 24th or 25th this week, you could have been a Scorpio, right? If you're November 21st, yesterday, or the 20th, you're Scorpio with Sag qualities. If you're born most years, if you're born late on the 22nd on this day, or you're a November 23 baby, or a 24, you're going to be very, very at the very start of Sagittarius with Scorpio tendencies. Sag identity with Scorpio residue. And that combination of Pluto and Jupiter gives Scorpio Sagittarius people that are born this week a there's definitely a mythological there's a mythology to their personality, and they're big people, and I don't mean physically, but they have the Scorpio and the Sag cusp personality has a hardiness to them, and it's hard to explain unless you are one or you know these people. But they're very, very hardy. Hardy sense of humor, hardy with their laugh, also hardy in their being serious and philosophical. They can be very much that, and they can be uh, wonderful to be around with the water and fire, but they can also be a heck of a lot to try to handle and to absorb, at least in my opinion. They can be a lot to handle. So we'll talk about that. All cusp periods in astrology, doesn't matter which one, you're always, you're under the influence of two signs, but you're always one sign. Because when you do your natal chart based on your time of birth and your birthplace, you get a specific degree. So then you are one sign, but you have traits of the other sign because it's so close. The residue of the other sign is so close to your sun sign. So the water and fire personality here. Scorpio is water, Sagittarius is fire. So we haven't talked about a fire cusp since August, when we had the Leo Virgo cusp in late August, a season ago, and that combined Leo and Virgo traits. So for water and fire, here you have people that are strongly feeling, like we've been talking about Scorpio for the last month. Strong feelings, strong emotions, but now we're adding the intuition of Sagittarius. Karen says, such an interesting time. Nice to see you, Karen. Yes, it really is. It's an amazing time to be alive. It really is. And I know all astrologers say that, but it is. I mean, in the last year or two, the transits are just phenomenal. And I love the astrologers like Steve Judd. I love the astrologers that are, they don't have an unhealthy bias about the aspect, either good or bad. It is what it is, and it's up to us to use the energy positively. That's it. I mean, it is that simple. And we can use it negatively as well. You know, we could come on an ego trip or get on a power trip or with certain people, but with the the Pluto energy there, which is on this cusp, it's just there. It's just there for to tune into it. And power isn't always intense. Power can be subtle. Power can be quiet. You can just find your own power with yourself quietly without telling anybody. You know, you don't have to tell anybody what your plans are, your goals are, or how you're changing inside. It's just, you can have that power just with yourself, or just with the earth, or just with animals. It doesn't always have to be something, intense or outward or loud or anything like that. But the water fire personality with Scorpio and Sag, if you know anyone born between November 19th and the 24th to 25th, you'll know these people pack a punch. They're hard to describe unless you see them in person. And their personalities combine this Scorpio quietness, this seriousness. But it's not long when you're spending time with them. It's not long that the Sag just comes out. The laughter, the smile, the sarcasm, bluntness. It comes out. It could be 3 hours later. It could be a day later if you're with them for the weekend, if they're family or friends. And so, the people that we know in our family and friends circle that are born this week, a wonderful laugh. That is a barometer for how they're feeling. The Scorpio Sag person, very much a barometer. Instead of taking their actual temperature to see if they're 98.6 and see if they're feverish, you can look at how much they're laughing, the brand of laughter, how they're laughing, and that will give you a really good indication if they're frustrated and repressed, or if they're jovial, intense, and just loving life, because that's the combination of Scorpio and Sag. There's a big lust for life here, lust for life, and but not just that intensity of Scorpio that we've been talking about. Scorpio is not naturally jovial, but Sagittarius usually is. So again, it's not pure Sagittarius, which we'll talk about next week. It's not pure on Sag, but it's that late Scorpio coming into now this new Jupiter energy with Pluto and Jupiter, water, fire, feeling, and intuition. And these folks, they like to, it's almost, they like to slash old-fashioned attitudes or ways, almost like Aquarius. Aquarius could very much relate to that. They could relate to these folks in the sense that the combination, the zeal of Sag and the intensity of Scorpio coming together, they like to just obliterate attitudes or thinking that's old-fashioned or stodgy or just simply not applicable or needed anymore in modern day society. So that's Scorpio Sag, and they inject gutsy change. So they're injectors. You meet these people, they're gutsy. Even if they're on the quiet side, you'll see that Sag side. You'll see it. It'll come out when they play a game, or if they perform, or when they're having fun, or out to eat. It's something will be there. You'll see the Sag. Doesn't mean they'll be loud, but there's a gutsiness there, and they inject that humor and that guts into change, almost like they might want to revolt against things, but it's not necessarily political or idealism. It could be just in their own little circle, but the penetrating mind of Scorpio combined with the sharpness of Sag. Sagittarius is a very keen sign, very sharp. Sagittarius energy also often needs direction. The arrow needs direction, but it doesn't need sharpening usually. So you combine that Scorpio and Sag, you got that gutsy change and revolution. That's what these folks like to do. And it's very hard to explain. You just have to be with them and observe them. I've even seen this in children. My daughter has a friend born on this cusp. And she's not an adult. I can see it. If you see it, you can see it. She's shy, but she has the side of her when she's being silly with my daughter. The side of her that is just, it is jovial, and it's a little like pushing the envelope, little like a prodder. Like, let's see what happens with this balloon. That's these folks, and it's a sharp line to goals. So, the Scorpio, we talked about Scorpio being a concentrated kind of ball of energy, this kind of concentrated, small, quiet force inside. Very often you don't see the strength of Scorpio easily outwardly. It's inside that they have it. But with the Sag, it's a sharp line to goals for them, for people born this week. They have very strong goals, and they are results oriented, and they're very penetrating. But with the addition of fire now, instead of just a true Scorpio, with the addition of that Sag, they're going to take a little more risk than a late Scorpio would. There's still a cautiousness because there's a little Scorp there. And if they have any other planets along with their cusp sun sign in Scorpio, if they have a Scorpio planet like a Mercury, or if they had Mercury in Capricorn, if you're a Sag, you could have Mercury in Capricorn. That would be more cautious, obviously. That could change the dynamic. But they're very results oriented. And part of the reason why I think their goals and results are so strong on this cusp is because they don't always use thought. Now, what does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean they're thoughtless or uncaring. I don't mean that. They tend to not overthink their goals and what they want. Because Scorpio is usually very true to itself, to his or herself, about what its values are. You know, Scorpio is obviously very fixed, and Sagittarius is very, you know, Sagittarius is perceptive and shooting for the stars. So when you combine that, there is thought. They are thoughtful, but they're not usually engaging in too much thought like an air sign would. This isn't like, you know, this isn't ruminating intellectual airy thoughts like a Gemini or Aquarius would, or even Libra. No, this is more, they can be intellectual, absolutely. I think people on this cusp would make very good teachers, professors, trainers of any kind, like, you know, coaches, motivational people. Absolutely. They'd be great in motivating teams, and just lighting a fire under people and getting people to get motivated and do stuff and start living life. You know, get out of your chair and live life. Those are these types of people, absolutely. But they don't use that thought. It's that feeling and then that intuition coming into play, mostly with that the early Sag energy. So for the most part, these folks are loyal, but this is interesting. It's kind of twofold. Now, Scorpio is very concentrated and generally loyal to loved ones. But Sag is one of the most freedom-loving signs, which we'll talk about in true Sag. So there's this simultaneous loyalty, but also don't fence me in too much. So Scorpio Sagittarius people need enough room. And again, it's not their thought, and like it's not like mental space like maybe an air sign would need. It's you know, physical or emotional space to just, you know, go rip like somewhere, you know, rip with a hobby or a sport or dancing or music or something. They need a release, because there's a lot. They're very fiery. There's a lot of intensity there that can get built up if they don't have outlets. But they're loyal, but also don't fence me in, kind of at the same time. And they kind of want to do what they want to do, in kind of like a pleasant. They're almost like pleasant rebels. They're very likable, and but they could kind of just go ahead and kind of do things, and you're kind of like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So loyal and don't fence me in, and the don't fence me in comes out when they're sarcastic. So the sarcasm with these folks can be positive or negative. Royal says birthday 11/29. Thanks 100%. Oh, happy birthday! Wonderful. Yesterday. So that means you're late. You're probably, depending on your year, you're probably a 29 Scorpio, most likely. Very, very close to Sag, but you're Scorpio with Sag tendencies. So yeah, that's very, very, very close. But you'll know from their sarcasm that either they're having a good time with you and they're going to prod you a little bit or tease, or maybe they're talking down to you a little bit. They can be a little high and mighty. They can be a little self-righteous. Scorpio Sag people are strong, so they like that. They like that repartee verbally. They can do that with people, and sometimes it's innocent. Other times it could be a little meaner. So it depends on where their laughter's at, and that's what they do with their laughter, is pokes. So they're poking you with humor. Sometimes it's serious humor, and sometimes it's just the pure Sagittarius, goofy, fiery kind of humor, kind of thing, straight from the shoulder. That's a phrase for Sagittarius. All right, so Royal says, yep, 28 degrees. Okay. Yeah, very, very close. Late Scorpio. Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, that's interesting. So in your chart, you would look to Pluto for your main ruler. I'm more the sweet type. Yeah, I mean, the 28 and 29 degree suns and 0 are criticals. those are very, very interesting people, because there's that simultaneous, simultaneous signs, or the traits are right there, sort of thing. But yeah, that's how Scorpio-Sagittarius people operate, with their sarcasm and their laughter and all that. So you'll know when you're with them. You'll kind of know what the weather is with them. Are they frustrated with you? Are they getting angry? Or are they just, kind of like animals? They're kind of testing the waters with each other, maybe like a hierarchy. But they like to follow their hunches. Now, this is a continuation of the Scorpio energy, whereas I mentioned Scorpio people have such amazing intuition emotionally if they tune into it. But a lot of Scorpio people and planets I've known don't honor it. They don't honor it, and I don't know why. I'm baffled by that, because it's interesting that when you think of rational scientific thought, we think of the air signs. We think of Gemini. We think of maybe Aquarius. We think of Virgo being more rational, or maybe towards a scientific end. Definitely Gemini. But you don't necessarily think of that with Scorpio. But Scorpio has this kind of, insightful practicality and penetrating quality that Scorpios like to use their mind correctly, and they like that scientific, rational side and being in control. So maybe that's why they don't honor that intuitive side, that water intuitive side. But people on this cusp have that Scorpio water, like Royal's 28 degrees. So there's the Scorp there, but there's that feeling of Sag coming for that baby born on the cusp, that intuition that, hey, you know what? The last 2 times I used that Scorpio mind, but this time I got to figure this out, or I got to figure this thing out with this person or people at work. I'm going to use my Sag now. I'm going to use a little more intuition, and I'm going to, you know what? It might backfire, but I'm going to play my hunches a little bit and follow the hunches. That's the Sag part. And sometimes that's via confrontation, which is the Scorpio part. So we have to remember that, Scorpio gets a bad rap for being an intense sign. I talked about last month, so many people write columns and books about how Scorpio people can be vindictive. Well, anyone can be vindictive, possibly if pushed far enough. If you have Scorpio energy that you're tuned into and you're operating on a low vibration, yes, I would imagine that it would be easier for you to go down a bad path and maybe engage in behaviors that are not going to help you and are going to end up in a bad place. Yes, but we have to remember that Scorpio side, it confronts life. Scorpios are not afraid of conflict or confrontation. That doesn't mean Scorpios look for it. Most Scorpio people I've known or coached, or people that have had major Scorpio, the moons, the Mars people, the Scorpio risings, even Venus in love. I've dated some Venus and Scorpio people. They don't look. I would say Scorpio is one of the signs that goes out of their way not to get into conflicts. But Scorpio knows deep down inside, hey, if you push me far enough, yes, I can get into that conflict with you. I will, I'll counterpunch. Scorpio's not a sign you want to victimize per se. They're good, good counterpunchers. And so are Scorpio-Sag people. You might talk down to them once, but they may not let it happen again, kind of thing. They'll push back. But that's an interesting thing. It's the hunches and confrontation with the Scorpio part. So I would imagine people being born on this cusp, or if you have even someone that's a Scorpio-Sag rising, if someone had Scorpio rising at 28 or 29 degrees, even if it's rising, that's still a Scorpio-Sag cusp placement. It's rising. So I would imagine people born on this cusp, it's hard to, we can go. You were saying so much spot on. I'll stop interrupting you. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah, it depends on which side you're seeing. Now, here's an interesting fact. I've known a lot of Sagittarius people in my life that are not on this cusp, that are born like the next week or the second week, which I'll talk about, but that also had Scorpio placements. And I've known a few Sag people with Scorpio rising. So for the astrological charts that contain Scorpio and Sag major together, there's a lot of these kind of themes of kind of like, it's almost like people that have strong Scorpio and Sag in their charts, it's really important how mature someone is. And I say that because Scorpio Sag energy planets, the cusp planets, can just go wild side. Just go wild. And it can come out of nowhere either. Also, it can come out of nowhere. It doesn't even matter the age. It could be someone that's 21 that just is getting a drink for the first time, or it could be someone that's having their second Saturn return that's between the ages of 56 and 60. And they're like, whoa, I'm 60 now. Guess what? I'm going to have a new life. And I'm going to be wild. You know, that happens. That 60-year-old could be just like a 21-year-old. That Scorpio Sag planet can just like blow up. So a lot has to do with maturity, obviously. Because there is that wild side. There hasn't been anyone born in this cusp, child or adult, that I've met that does not have a wild side. Even if they're quiet, even if it's a little quiet, even if they're introverted, it's there. There's no doubt about it. It's fun, but it can be, at least for me, it can be a bit much. It could be a little exhausting. So that sort of thing. But the wild side can breed contempt. So Scorpio Sag people, as sweet and jovial as you can be, which you do have very strong sweet and jovial sides when you're treated well, when you're feeling secure, you can have that contempt. You can very quickly in your mind be like, you can have a sharpness, and it can turn. It's like a flame. And if you're a Scorpio and you have your Mercury in Sag, you're going to be much more blunt than a normal Scorpio would be, let's say with Mercury in Libra or something. If you're an early Sag and you have your Mercury in Scorpio, then you'll be blunt, but you'll pick your times. You'll pick your times to be more poisonous with your bluntness. You won't be just blunt to be blunt, but you'll pick your times. So that's how that works. But that contempt, you got to be careful of that. To be contempt or derisive towards people, kind of talking, things that don't go your way, or things that are quite up to your standards. That's definitely a theme for Scorpio Sag. And that can go into kind of jeering. That's the word I use, jeering. But it's there. It's definitely there. But no doubt, every year when I talk about Sagittarius people, Sagittarius is one of those signs that Sagittarius, which we'll talk about more next week, the Sagittarius people are uniquely fun, right? If you're close to being a Sag like Royal, or you're someone that has a Sag in your family that's born in the next month up to like December 20th or 21st, you'll know that Sag person has a special, unique brand of fun that is unlike any other sign. It's just, every astrologer knows it. It's just the Sagittarius sort of thing. So when you're around them, I've traveled before with Sagittarius people, different Sagittarius people, and Sag is the sign of travel. Sagittarius people are wonderful to travel with, or do day trips with. I mean, Sagittarius people, they're made for that. Now, depending on how much time you want to spend with them, depending on your own chart and what you can handle and if they can handle you, or they may be bored by you if you can't keep up with them. It's just that's just Sagittarius. And then next week when we talk about the celebrities that are true Sag, you'll see, based on how they use their Sagittarius energy in their craft, why it's so specific and unique. I love people on this cusp for the fact that I love the guts. I said gutsy before. I know I keep saying that, guts. There's something very gutsy about these people. And, this is someone that will say on a dime, they'll wake up on a Saturday morning and say, I never rode a horse before. No one's even shown me. Oh, they're doing it at 10 a.m. That a Scorpio Sag will just get in their car and go ride a horse. Or go hike 3 miles, 4 miles. They never hiked before, but they'll just go hike. you know, that sort of thing. Um, or going to a city, you know, do a city weekend away in a city, then all of a sudden they'll end up in the mountains. You know, 3 hours later, they're in the mountains in the middle of nowhere. That's this type of person. But definitely very, very interesting. And depending on whether someone is born, if someone's the 20th or 21st or 19th, you're Scorpio, you may be more of an introvert and that wild side comes out once in a while. If you're the 22nd today, 23rd, 24th, maybe 25th, there's definitely more of a marked Sagittarius fiery quality. And then the Scorpio, the quietness or that brooding intensity, Scorpio comes out a little less often. It's there, and obviously your loved ones are going to know it. If you're married or your boyfriend or girlfriend, if they're intimate with you, they're going to know that and they're going to see that side of you, whereas maybe the rest of your circle or people at work are not going to see that. And that's why cusps are so such a wonderful blending of the traits. They're amazing because, you know, it's very, when I meet people or I do a reading for someone and they say I'm January 1st, I'm March 1st. Okay, those people are smack dab in the middle of that sign. And if they're like a 10 degree, 11 degree, 12 degree sun sign, any sign, there's something very specific about those people. It's very easy to see that sun sign behavior. But on the cusp people, which I know so many people, I know so many 22, 23, 24 people. It's amazing throughout the year, those specific dates. You see a little of this and you see a little of that. You see a little quiet, then you see a little more, you know, nervousness or outgoing qualities, depending on which cusp. So it is really interesting. Now, another thing on this cusp is it has a very pronounced, what I say pronounced male energy. And by that, I mean I don't mean necessarily male or female modern times or male or female, what it meant to be in ancient times. I mean just extroverted, masculine, outward directed energy. So it doesn't matter, man or woman on this cusp, doesn't matter. It's a very strong, pronounced male energy. You have Pluto influencing the cusp. To a lesser extent, you have Mars. So for someone like Royal, who's 28 degrees, he or she should look at their Mars in their chart for some flavor of how that person uses their energy. And so you have Mars, a little bit of Mars, you have Pluto, and then of course you would look to Jupiter, especially someone born on the 23rd or 24th. That's early Sag. You would look to the Jupiter first, their Jupiter sign, to see what their sign is and the aspects. But there's male energy there. Jupiter, Pluto, and Mars. It doesn't mean that men or women on this cusp are not in touch with their feminine energy inside yin. That is Scorpio. Scorpio is a fascinating sign in the sense that Scorpios can be feminine and masculine. You know, I've known men and women with stelliums in Scorpio, 3, 4, 5 planets in a chart. And sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes the men are super quiet. Sometimes the women are super intense and loud. There's no rhyme or reason to it. Again, it depends on the rest of the chart. It depends on those placements and maybe how that person was, you know, nature and nurture. How was that person nurtured growing up in their family? What kind of neighborhood did they come from? What kind of family, socioeconomic status? A lot of that comes into play with Scorpio and Sag, because Scorpio Sag is like, there's just something all or nothing. Not only the Scorpio part, but there's an all or nothing quality to this energy. It's like, I want to be rich or I want to be poor, but I don't want to be sloppy or anything in between that doesn't match who I am. I'm either going to be really this, or I'm just going to be like true to myself and I'm going to be poor. You know, that's that sort of thing. And so a Scorpio-Sag person could fight for the underdog, but they could also be an aristocrat, and they could also enjoy the good life and enjoy being part of the rich or part of the elite. Uh, you know, they could, a Scorpio-Sag person can go either way, and they often do go both. They can often relate to both kind of classes of people, and that's why I say they're good teachers, good motivators. These people, they definitely have charisma, and they can influence people. Royal says Mars in Scorpio, Jupiter Aquarius. A lot of fixity there. A lot of fixity. So that Mars in Scorpio, that would just add to a 28-degree Scorpio person who's now influenced by Jupiter or Sag. That's just adding to the concentration of Scorpio. So that's a lot of strong Scorpio. But yeah, pronounced male energy, and there's a one-upmanship or one up womanship. There can be a quality with people born on this cusp where they like to be the top dog. Again, it doesn't matter male or female. There might be kind of an alpha energy, an alpha female or alpha male energy for people on this cusp, because you're looking at, again, like I started the hour, you're looking at mythology, personalities that are mythological. Pluto and Jupiter, you know, I mean, very, very, for lack of a better term, strong, potent sort of thing. But so it's good for people on this cusp to make sure that they can have some quiet and go and reflect and go inside and be a little more, you know, have some of that yin and have those downtimes with all their striving and all their goals and all this fun and all this, you know, all this ecstatic things that they're doing. You know, it's like ecstasy, but it's not literal. The Scorpio-Sag combination of water and fire can really, again, it's wild. It needs direction. It needs direction, and you know, it's good probably for Scorpio-Sag people to have people around them that are grounded. You know, maybe some Taurus people, maybe some Capricorn people, maybe even Leo, Aries, people that can keep them honest and, you know, grounded. That could be important, definitely. And one lesson for people in this cusp: be transparent for less conflict. So, you know, Scorpio can be a secretive sign. We talked about that, and it doesn't mean that Scorpio doesn't express or share things with people, but Scorpio knows the value of privacy. So obviously, Scorpio has to feel comfortable with you, trust, to be more transparent. But people on this cusp will have less conflict, I think, if they're more transparent about themselves, about their sometimes bossy ways, or sometimes those intense ways, that sarcastic, kind of strong part of themselves, where you know, things are not up to their liking, you know, sort of thing, or just grilling people. See, here you have the penetrating of mind of Scorpio, and then you have the Sag that wants to know everything. Sag is I perceive. So Sag is like, now we got, how do I perceive this? Well, with the intensity of Scorpio. So grill, 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 grill. So I can imagine what Scorpio-Sag people do to themselves in their mind. I'm sure they're grilling themselves. So give yourself a break as well, and be transparent for less conflict. So Jupiter was the ruler of the heavens. So obviously Jupiter in mythology is amazing, very important, strong, potent energy, uh, you know, among the gods and goddesses. And you're talking high aims, high reaching goals, and a love of the chase. So in the Scorpio period, you know, Scorpios are attractive. Scorpios can be sexy and sensual and can attract people very easily. Scorpios have a lot of magnetism quietly, though. It's very easy for them to attract. But when you have the Sag influence with Jupiter, there is part of that fixity of Scorpio, and then there's this this liking of the chase of the goals. So it's like Jupiter, the Sag part gets an idea and wants to run with it, but doesn't just want to sample it. It's like a buffet. It's not going to sample it. You might try every type of coffee or every type of wine on the bar there. You know, a little bit, have a little shot glass and try all the coffees or try all the wines or try all the teas. That's the Sag part as far as the chase. So it's a very interesting, and I think that can exhaust Scorpio-Sag people. I've seen Scorpio-Sag people go at such a pace, and then they just like burn out, or they just stop, you know, or something stops them. They get sick, or whatever, that sort of thing. So there's a star born this week called Ptolemy. That's Alpha Centaur. That's a 29-degree Scorpio star or 0 Sag. So if Royal's degree is 28, absolutely it's conjunct Alpha Centaur, and Centauri, and the symbols are the centaur, which is obvious, but also ostriches. So there's a lot of animal and animal creature symbology there with people that are Scorpio-Sag, and that's interesting. Now, to a lesser extent, obviously the scorpion is a symbol, but that's much more early. That's really weeks ago, much more early Scorpio. When you get into the 28 or 29-degree Scorpio, it's not as strong, and then you're looking more towards the stars here. That's more Jupiter, and it can be honor, very sharp, but it can also indicate loss because of that burnout or overstretching yourself, sort of thing. You know, if you have a late Scorpio planet that's just Scorpio, obviously you have the pitfalls of just Scorpio. If you have an early planet that's just Sag, you have the pitfalls that's just Sag. But when you have a 20, a 29, or a 0, you can have the strengths of both, but you have the pitfalls of both as well. So if you misfire and you're operating at a low vibration, then unfortunately the negatives of both of them might come into play, or both at different times. So that's something to balance out. Then there's another star called Shuba, potentially an immoral or low energy star, from what I read. And 2 serial killers had that: Ted Bundy and John Wayne Gacy. Ted was his son, and I believe John Wayne Gacy, is a rising or ascending Scorpio-Sag planets that are conjunct that star right there. So again, I think people born this week with the Jupiter and the Pluto, if they're conjunct those stars into right up to the 24th or 25th. 25th is getting a little later, and then 26 is absolutely first decan of pure Sag. There's gonna be that influence, and there's just so much potential there. You know, I talked about in Scorpio how Scorpios have immense creative potential, but when you add the Sagittarius component, it's like you can accomplish almost anything. But anywhere there's Scorpio, you can always do yourself in or sting yourself. That's the symbology of Scorpio. And then the Sagittarius, I've never met a Sagittarius planet person that I can think of that hasn't gone overboard with something. Shopping, partying, drinking, a hobby, too much work. If you think of the Sag energy, think of horses galloping, which we're going to talk more about Sag next week. But horses galloping, once that horse gets a taste of freedom, that fresh air and that space, and the landscape, the horse cannot go crazy. The horse is just like, this is life, and that's part of it. And so when you're having the Sag and the Scorpio on a cusp, it's just the verve that these people have is it's pretty awe-inspiring. It's pretty interesting, and they're good influencers too. I think they can influence people, um, and they have a Scorpio Sag person has a little more, I think, likability or charm to get their way rather than just a full-on middle of the road Scorpio. That doesn't mean a Scorpio person can't be charming or likable, but if it's pure Scorpio energy, you would have to look at what else is in the chart. But with the Scorpio Sag together, it can be intense, but they're often very likable and charming and fun, and you can get away with they can get away with certain things because of that sort of that energy. All right, well, let's move on to the celebrity part. Every week I talk about celebrities, and it's always people that are born during the period that we're talking about, and so you can see how they use their energy. Now there's so many people born during this cusp, particularly on November 23rd of all years. Now I don't know why November 23rd. There's so many people, so many famous people, and so many babies. Although I didn't pick a lot of people from 11/23 because I didn't vibrate with a lot of the people in history that I felt was good for this cusp. So most of these people are like between the 20th and 22nd, maybe the 19th, and maybe the 24th. So we have Meg Ryan, who is, comedic, dramatic actress from the 60s, and she's been in all sorts of things, movies with Tom Hanks. She was in City of Angels with Nicolas Cage. I think that's one of her best performances. I think the City of Angels character shows depth in that character, and it's one of the most that really captures her Scorpio Sag qualities. When Harry Met Sally is also another one that really shows those qualities of her. Jodie Foster, she's also another actress that's born the same generation as Meg, and Jodie Foster is wonderful. She was in Silence of the Lambs as an FBI agent. She's been in so many good, interesting sci-fi and dramatic movies and shows. There's no doubt, with her face, those eyes, Jodie has her own brand of intensity. She's definitely intense. Silence of the Lambs, that's what I was thinking of. That's probably her signature role, at least as an adult. I know as a teenager she was in movies as well. But yeah, she has an amazing brand of intensity. Joe Walsh is one of the co-founders and guitarists from the group The Eagles, and also a solo artist. And his music is really, really fun. It's a little different than the Eagles. It's more wild. It's more freewheeling. He has a song called "Life Is Good," and he's just talking about how life is good despite his own flaws and failings in life. So he's kind of making fun and being sarcastic about himself, but he's saying, "Hey, life's still good because I kind of have a positive attitude." Jamie Lee Curtis, and I mentioned her last year in my Scorpio Sag video, or maybe that was 2 years ago. Jamie Lee Curtis, she is from Halloween. She's from many different movies throughout the 80s, 90s, 2000s. She is like Jodie Foster. She has her own brand of intensity, but she's also likable and very blunt. Her characters are very blunt, especially as Laurie Strode in the Halloween series. She does that so well. And I especially like her as a senior woman playing the older Laurie Strode in the recent ones from the last 6 years. So she's great. Boris Karloff, one of the most prominent actors from back in the day, but most notably horror movie actors or actresses. And Boris probably was one of the best, probably one of the most skillful method actors for horror. And he did The Mummy, he did Frankenstein, just classic. And his physicality in his face, very, very strong and very mythological. I think he's playing monsters. So obviously, even the directors and writers then knew to plug these people in based on, you know, what they represent, what their energies are, what they're tapping into. You know, so definitely very interesting. Ted Bundy, the serial killer from Burlington, Vermont. He obviously is a very troubled man, but he was able to lure and trick victims because people said he was likable. And a true Scorpio person that didn't have Sagittarius in their chart, it might be a little harder for them to, I don't want to say hide their Scorpio, because Scorpios can hide their energy, but the Sag energy can come off as friendly and you know, harmless almost. Sag energy can be almost harmless seeming, but there can be that fiery nature, unfortunately, that you know, behind that. So Ted Bundy had that. Mr. T. Now I mentioned Mr. T. He's not a Scorpio Sag. Mr. T is a Taurus Gemini that's born this week, 6 months ago. So he's born on the Taurus Gemini cusp. Now I mentioned Mr. T because how different he is from these water fire types. Now Mr. T is an intense guy. You know, he was in the Rocky movie. He was in what's that show? The A-Team. He did various spots in TV. But Mr. T comprises that earthy intensity of the Taurus Gemini cusp. You know, he's physically more present and more earthy. So that's why I wanted to mention how different kind of someone is, the Gemini Taurus person, as opposed to this water fire type. Now, John F. Kennedy Jr., he's also born on this, and some people say he's still alive and that he faked his death. Who knows? But he was born on this cusp, and obviously shared some of the Kennedy smarts and feelings and intensity the whole Kennedy clan has had throughout history and um, all these different scenarios and situations they've been in. But JFK Jr. Obviously had his own zeal and brand of intensity and wild nature and truth seeking. Obviously, very, very much so. Um, and then there was a Charles Starkweather, is a more obscure serial killer that was also born on this cusp, and he was the early Sag. He was an early Sag, like Ted Bundy. So the early Sag people potentially, again, you got to look at their chart, but the early Sag energy, like a 0 or 1 or 2, could be raw and more raw and impulsive. They may be plotting and quiet, but they are going to break. Their wild side can break easier, and they can be more impulsive than, let's say, a 27 or 28 or 29 degree Scorpio, who would be more plotting and then maybe impulsive every once in a while, but it's not necessarily going to snap as quickly, if that makes sense. So a low vibration person on this cusp could really snap. And again, I would look to their moon too for just their emotional nature, you know, sort of thing, and how they might use that. But those are some celebrities. Again, I didn't have too many this week. I couldn't find a lot that I felt really, you know, vibed with the Scorpio-Sagittarius cusp, and a lot of them were from like the turn of the century and 1910s, 1920s. So I didn't include them. I didn't think they would be as relevant. But we're going to talk about the transits now. It's just about 8 o'clock Eastern Standard. Thank you for hanging in there with me. 3 or 4 people for the hour. I appreciate it. I really do appreciate all the views. You're helping this channel to grow little by little every week. So I mentioned at the top of the hour that the sun, the sextile Pluto right now. We hear a lot of astrologers and tarot people talking about this, and they'll be talking about the tarot cards and symbolism that it relates to. But here's the sun at 1 of Sag right now in the sky. This is the states. And Pluto is here at 0 of Aquarius. So imagine how powerful that is. It's 2024. So make sure, imprint this date in your memory or put it in your phone or in your planner, and put a reminder from a year from now or 2 years from now or 5 years from now, and remember it, because you're at Pluto at 0 of Aquarius right now. You're talking, it's been hundreds of years since Pluto was at a critical degree of Aquarius, a sign of revolution and change, and higher intelligence, aliens, AI, all that stuff. This is stuff that could come out. All the craziest things you can imagine could actually come out as truth. And you'd be like, oh, okay, I kind of thought that was true. So Pluto and Aquarius can help. We can help, bring that out. Yes, Carolyn says it's momentous. It really is. It really is. And so tonight, November 22nd, 2024, you're at 0 degrees of Aquarius. This goes on for 19 and a half years. This is going to go on till 2043. So for those of us that will be around or hope to be around in 19 years, we will finish that. We'll change however we're going to change, finish that, and then go into Pluto and Pisces. And obviously there's a portion of the population in 19 years, almost 20 years, that will not be around. And you'll be on another level, and your solar spirit will be looking down on all your family and friends, but you'll be experiencing it. You just won't be experiencing it in the way you are right now. But yeah, I mean, whether you're 5 years old right now or you're 100, to be influenced by this it's truly momentous and amazing. And someone sent me a video of an older astrologer who's been doing astrology for his whole life, and he mentioned this Sun Pluto sextile, and he said the last time the Sag and Aquarius planet at this degree was sextile, I think he said was 200, almost 300 years. So not just the Pluto and Aquarius transit, but that particular sextile between the two suns. Now, the Sun sextile Pluto has occurred since the 1700s, obviously at different times because of the transit of the Sun, because the Sun's transiting every year. So I did look up some, like some people. We have Simon Le Bon from Duran Duran. He's born in the 50s. He was born with Sun sextile Pluto, not in these signs. He just has the Sun in Scorpio, sextile Pluto and Virgo, I believe. Then you have Dennis Hopper, who's now passed. He had Sun sextile Pluto in his chart. Albert Einstein had it. Obviously, that was a long time ago. Rudolf Steiner, the philosopher and writer, he was very deep. He had that. Bob Dylan also has the Sun sextile Pluto, and a whole host of other charismatic people and people that really influenced generations. The Sun and Pluto is personal destiny. Pluto is an outer planet which affects generations, but the Sun is a personal planet. So imagine if you know anyone that's pregnant, and if they're having their baby this weekend or this week, a mom, can you imagine having a baby born this week with the exact degree of 0 of Aquarius Pluto, but sextile the Sag? Because if we were in Scorpio, right, if this was Sun at Scorpio, it would be a square. But the sextile is wonderful because it's Sag and Aquarius is like a natural friendship. There's an ease there. And it's an open portal to create what you want. So you find where the Sag is in your chart, and then you find where the Aquarius is in your chart. And if you have any Sag planets that are early, or if you have any Aquarius planets that are early, that Sun-Pluto sextile will activate it. So it's not all good or bad, but it gives you opportunity to just use that. And in November of, 2030, so this is it. Pluto at 0 of Aquarius for at least the next 6 years. So keep this in mind for 6 years. If you know anyone that's an early Aries, so if you know someone that's born like March 20th, March 21st, 22nd, 23, or early Sag, which is November 23, 24, 25, maybe even 26, the early Aries and Sag people are getting the sextile from Aquarius. So Aries is too. Only the early Aries is getting the true sextile by degree. Any Aries planet is getting a sextile only by the sign, and it's going to take years. It's going to take more than a decade. If an Aries is born in April and they're, let's say, 12 degrees, 12 to 20, closer to 30, it's going to be more than a decade. It's going to be a really long time. So those Aries people and those Sag people are going to live a long life. But early Aquarius people, early Aquarius planets are getting the conjunction. So if someone's born like January 22nd or 23rd, that Pluto's right on their sun. Pluto conjunct your sun for so long coming. That's not something that's going to just go away in 2 years. You're going to have a relationship that dissolves and then you transform. No, you're going to have an opportunity to create and transform for decades, or at least a decade. And then, so the Sag and Aries with the Aquarius. And then, of course, Libra, early Libra and Gemini planets, if you're 0, 1, 1, or 2, you're getting the trine from Pluto, and that's nice. That's really nice. And then Sun sextile Pluto, as I've mentioned for a couple months now, the early fixed signs, early Leo, you're getting the opposition. And early Taurus and Scorpio, you're getting the square. So if you have someone that's born April 21st, April 22nd, April 23, you have someone that's October 23, October 24, October 25th. Those early Scorps, those early Taurus, they're getting the square. Their suns, or moon, or Venus, or Mars, are getting the square. So it's not necessarily all bad. It's not all doom and gloom. There will be tension. There will be tension. And any planet that's going to have that square, Pluto is going to shake it up, but it's going to do more than shake it up. If it was Uranus, if it was a Uranus transit, Uranus would shake it up, but wouldn't necessarily destroy it. But Pluto can destroy something. It can be a death, but it can be for a lot of good. It can be for a lot of good. I watched a couple astrology videos where these astrologers talked about the Sun-Pluto combination, and they are correct. You can choose for it to be negative, or you can heal. You can find a way to tune into it and either heal yourself or heal others. I've talked to people that are into astrology that don't even believe in prayer. You don't have to be religious. There's so many people that don't believe in God or don't believe in prayer or united thought, but yet when people come together and pray or think good thoughts or use certain frequencies to heal. A lot of these people are doing this on the internet now. People are spreading this stuff. People heal. People do get healed physically, emotionally, spiritually. People get healed. So it's a lot of that is intent. The intention. Good intention, bad intention. That's not everything, but all that intention behind it, that's really, really important. What I really would like to talk to are people that have these early Aquarius planets, specifically, that are getting the conjunction. So, again, someone that is a, late January or any Aquarius planet in someone's chart, that would be a Capricorn cusp Aquarius planet, like a 29 Capricorn planet, 0, 1, maybe 2 degrees of Aquarius. That is a conjunction. So especially for the sun, if it's someone's moon, their emotional life is going to be turned upside down. If it's Venus, it's love life, and it could have to do with work as well. If it's Mars, it's your energy. Like Royal says, Mars and Scorpio. Depending on the degree matters, because if that's a late degree of Scorpio Mars, let's say, it's not nearly as strong. It's only a square by sign. It's not really that personal with the Pluto. But if someone has a Mars sign, I know a couple of people that have early Mars Scorpio. They're a Libra Mars Scorpio Mars planet. So it's not pure Scorpio. They will be feeling this. They will definitely feel if they're 0, 1, or 2 of Scorpio Mars, their Pluto would be squaring, I'm sorry, the transiting Pluto would be squaring their Mars. And that could create problems with authority figures, definitely male problems or transformation with males. Either if you are a male, it could be with yourself, and it can either create situations that are dangerous for yourself, or you might be attracted to dangerous situations with Pluto on Mars there. But again, so much of it is intent. You know, as astrologers, we all have, young and old, we all have our own style. And we, you know, that's why astrology is so fascinating, right? I love astrologers that are just themselves, no more, no less. That's what I try to be. Some people are going to vibrate with you, and some people are maybe even turned off, don't agree. So it's a frequency. But if you're trying to force a frequency uh, to get information out, it's not going to work. So that's why I love all these astrologers that are talking about this energy. They're not all, it's not all, they're not saying it's all good. They're not saying it's all bad. They're saying it is what it is. And it's, how are we going to use it? You know, and that's really a lot of it. And I mentioned in the last couple broadcasts, the low vibration energy that we can use with any planet, especially our moon signs, which is our emotions. You know, when we're betrayed or hurt or slighted by someone, either professionally or personally, you know, it's not a good feeling. You know, what if you're a writer and you write copy for something, and then someone at work steals it and puts their name on it and says, "Look at this 10-page thing I wrote," and then they get all the credit, but you did it, and then no one will ever know that. Something like that. So, you know, that is that's very important to know how you would respond to that, especially if something like Pluto is touching it, or Saturn, that sort of thing. Oh, Royal says, actually, it's Mars in Aries. Sorry. 25 degrees, Jupiter, Aries. Oh, so your Mars is 25 degrees Aries. Okay. All right. So that's almost a cusp. So that's late Aries, Mars. And it's almost an Aries Taurus cusp. That's okay. So that's an energetic degree. But it's also, it's an Aries Mars is very fiery and very strong, but it's not as strong as a pure Mars Aries. Like, let's say if it was like 5 degrees, or like which would be more like springtime. But that's Jupiter Aquarius, 6 degrees. Okay, that's almost. So Pluto. So let's see. So if someone like, so Jupiter at 6, so you're looking at several years. So if someone had a 5, 6, 7, 8-degree Aquarius planet, 5 to 7 years, they're going to start feeling that conjunction. So mark it in your calendar, your phone, do repeat yearly or whatever, and or custom it. That's something I love to do. I'm really big into time management, and what I love to do with astrology is, you know, all astrologers, we all have, I've noticed this about almost every astrologer, and I have watched hundreds of astrology videos. I've followed hundreds of different types of astrologers, men, women, all ages. And one thing almost we all have is really quirky, specific ways that we use our astrology in our lives, with time management, for tasking, you know, how to figure out how to coach people or mentor people, or how to give spiritual or tarot advice, right? All astrologers do that. And what I like to do is find like a phone application or an application on your computer or laptop, and you use the repeat function, and then you customize it. So put in a degree, put in a reminder for yourself to check Pluto, put in a reminder to meditate or breathe, or you want to do a Pluto ritual or something. You know, you want to do a positive ritual. I'm not talking about, I'm talking about dark stuff. Hopefully, good, you know, positive rituals. You know, everything's intent. But if you want to do that, put in meditation, Pluto Aquarius, and put it from 2 years from now or 3 years from now. You know, if you feel like they're going to be around, and then do repeat every year or every 2 years, or or every 6 months or whatever. So I do a lot of that with astrology. And then as the seasons change, I start gearing up and warming up towards certain things that I want to tune into and what I want to talk about with seasons. And I'm getting more, my process is getting more intuitive with that. And it's not as much of a struggle for me to figure out what my copy is and where I want to go with the information. Because sometimes as astrologers, it's like we know all this stuff, and then sometimes you just get blocked. Like, I've already said all that stuff like 100 times. There's nothing new. So coming up with things that are fresh each year for the signs is not easy, but there's always something to find. All right, so before we go out, so I'm also going to show here. I hope you guys can see that, and gals. Now, I've been mentioning, if you follow other astrologers or have read other astrology books, you'll know that almost every astrologer in the world is into, Saturn. Saturn is huge. Astrologers love Saturn. And I've been talking about for months now, the 1934, which would be people that just turned 90 or are turning 90, 34, 35 people, if they're still alive, 64, 65 people, which would be 60 or turning 60, or 1994 or 95 people that just turned 30 or are turning 30 next year, and even the 6 people in those years, 96, 66, and 36. Those are all people that have either finished their Saturn return in Pisces, you're in the middle of it, or you're just starting it. So if someone's 27 going on 28, or 28 going on 29, you're just starting it, or you're just on your way to finishing it. And then by the time you're 30, it's pretty much all wrapped up. But generally speaking, the Saturn return is 28 is the biggest age where you see so many changes in people's lives, about like 27, 28, 29, with marriages, divorces, if they got married young, going back to school, changing jobs. If someone went to college and graduated at 22 and started a job, people often change careers, all sorts of different things. So much changes between that time. But the Saturn and Pisces folks, this is a really amazing time. And then when Saturn goes into Aries, then we're going to be looking at the early natal Saturn and Aries people, obviously. I know 1968, for example. I know someone that's born in 68. He's going to, it's going to be a while. He's not there yet. But, in the coming years, he's going to start his second Saturn return. And the 90-year-old people, or the 89-year-old people, is their third. Imagine living long enough to have 3 Saturn returns. That's a lot of work. Well, obviously, you've worked a lot. That's a lot of physical work with your career. But it's also a lot of work through your personal life and transformation and lessons. Sort of thing. So that's a lot. And obviously we have all the other planets. We have Mars is in Leo, Neptune, the node, Uranus, Jupiter are still all retrograde. They will be for a while. And then Mercury is in Sag, but Mercury is going to be going retrograde soon. Mercury in Sag is a little odd too. It's not, remember how I mentioned earlier that Sag is sharp but in east direction? So a transit Mercury in Sag can be wild and a little flaky. So when Mercury goes retrograde in Sag, I would hold out until it goes direct or until it goes into Capricorn before you do anything too serious as far as goals for next year. I know I have some goals for next year, and right now, between now and January, they're on the burner, but I'm not doing anything, not committing to certain things. I'm going to wait out nothing against Sag, but just going to wait out that Mercury and Sag transit. And then there will also be some other retrograde. coming up in the next 6 months as well. But that's good for now. I really appreciate everyone's. I really appreciate all the comments. I love to see this getting more interactive and engaging. It's wonderful. Please tell your family and friends. So it's usually Friday nights here, 7 p.m. here on YouTube, Astroscoop, and catch me on X and Instagram. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share all that good stuff. And if you do want to donate to the channel, any amount, you could donate via Venmo, which is Astroscoop. It could be any amount. It's the thought, not the amount. I mean, if someone gave me a quarter, it's the thought. It's just like when you tip people. If you tip your Uber or Lyft driver, or you tip a cab driver, or you tip your hairstylist, that person, what it means to them in their heart at the end of the night is the thought that you put into it. If you're not, you can't tip big, that's okay. But if you don't tip at all and you don't show the thought, that's it. You have blessed me for my birthday. Gratitude. Oh, you're very welcome, Royal. Thank you. Blessed be. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you next week. Have a great week.